Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode 117 of Speaking from the Heart. And I know what you're thinking. Another episode of goal setting, trying to solve problems, and so much more is in store for today's episode. We're not going to cover that. We've covered it so many different times. Matter of fact, I could go on and on and on about SMART goal development, specific, measurable, actionable, relational, time-bound. But even with all those things said, even if you wanted to try to be relational, realistic, whatever you want to fit into those acronyms, because you noticed that I said it wrong, it's not about just SMART goal development. It's not about having all these solutions so that we can make our lives magically different. It's about really understanding why, even with all the goals set and working with all the coaches of the world, you still are not making any progress. And yes, I've had clients that also come in, we think that it's going to be some sort of magic formula, and it's not quite what they expect it to be. Because it's the hard work, it's the dedication, it's the time after time of being successful that makes them truly successful. So in today's episode, I don't want to talk about SMART goal methodology and how you go about it. What I want to talk about is how you can break down all these things into small, manageable, bite-sized pieces so that you are able to make that progress, so that you are able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you will be able to see some of the best results that you've ever seen in your entire life. But it's not as easy as just making goals and putting them down on a sheet of paper. Maybe even analyzing who you are and trying to figure out what really works best. And I have to laugh at some of the other coaches that do this. It's not just about setting goals. It's not just about these quick plans that you can do in 60 or 90 days. Sure, if you want an intense, penetratable sort of goal that will be able to be accomplished in no time flat, spend your $3,000 to $5,000 in hiring one of those coaches. But if you really want to have a long-term success, why don't you put $3,000 to $5,000 in a year of working on your goal? Now that starts to become a little bit more manageable, and you're able to take it one small step at a time. We can easily be dismayed, though, because we have all these things that we have to do. Well, I got to do the dishes today, Josh. Oh, well, something else came up, Josh. I can't really work on that today, or tomorrow, or even the next day. Oh, you asked me to do that, Josh? I totally forgot to do it. I've heard every excuse in the book at this point, and I've only been doing this for a little over a year. I get it. You are not paying attention. You do care, but the problem is you have the lack of motivation to carry through. So I hear you out there, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just about what you are doing as those time pushes that we've talked about even in productivity episodes on this podcast. It's about how you holding yourself accountable when you need to be accountable for everything that you do. And I think one of the first things I have to talk about without even any hesitation, because I have this problem myself, is making sure you have the right environment to be able to be successful. Environment in itself doesn't always mean, though, that you have to win and win and win in these sort of walls that you set up for yourself. It means you have to find a place, that little spot, whether it's at the dining room table, maybe it's at an office that you rent, maybe it's in the most busiest coffee cafes that you could ever find. We all thrive in different environments. I've seen people even drive RVs all across the country to work on their self-development. And if travel is your game, I'm here to stay. But you have to realize that these sort of environments are the reasons why we are thriving, making ourselves so successful, to be able to achieve greatness when greatness comes from being and thriving in the places that we enjoy being the most. So if there's anything that you get out of this episode, make sure that you're creating the right environment and the right attitude for yourself within that environment to be successful. There's no time to be playing games. There's no reason for you to have distractions by your phone. Turn all of it off and focus. Nowadays, computers have the ability to have you focus in 30-minute sprints at minimum to be able to do that. Even less time if you need that time to be able to do small tasks. But when we talk about these big, hairy, audacious goals, or BHAG, if we like to call it short, we have to realize that these are things that we don't do one bite-sized piece at a time. It means that we have to manage the expectation of eating that big piece that we're taking off that elephant. But sometimes the managing of the expectations means that we have to have the right tools alongside us. I see it all the time in which people fail, and I do this myself. I fail because I brought the wrong tools to the table. When I needed to have a fork, I brought a knife. When I brought a plastic fork and also a plastic knife, I should have had a real knife because the things that I was going to cut were not going to be cut by some sort of dingy plastic material to be able to eat. But I think that we have to understand if we're ever going to make progress, it means that we have to learn that not just the environment matters, but the tools that we bring. If we're not able to bring the right tools, whether we have to borrow them from somebody else, we have to buy them, or even get a loan to buy them, we have to be able to put the right investment of tools into the right perspective. I'll give you a perfect example. One of the things that I always wanted to work on in my business, especially starting out, was having a number of workshops. And I always failed at doing it because when you start out, you never realize how much work is involved with everything that you have to do. So I had all these workshops, but I never got them off the ground because one thing after another started. Having clients, being able to do interviews with other people that were coming in as clients. The consultations along with the administrative burden became to be way too much starting out. Now I've gotten a lot better about my processes and learning as I go along, which is always the value of being a small business owner. But when you're developing, even yourself for that matter, manage your expectation, even with all the tools, with all the environments that you're creating. Do not overdo it. When you start to realize that when you take these microchasms of things that you need to work on and you work on them very diligently to the point that you feel satisfied with it, that's when you know that you're making progress. Now, I already hear you. You're saying to yourself, that's fascinating, but how do I know when is too much? I'm terrible at managing those expectations. It's sometimes a trial by error, and every time that you do it, it's going to be a little bit different. What you might be able to do in a 30-minute sprint one day, you might need about an hour to do in the next day. And it might be because of the way that you're feeling. It might be the weather outside. It might be other things that you're asked to do, whether it's at work or at some other capacity. There's all kinds of factors. So I always encourage, take the maximum of the time that you need to be able to work on those things, but don't overdo it either. If something as simple as setting up a Word document so that you're ready to type your next novel takes you 4 hours, that's not managing expectations. That's why I always think it's important to have a coach to work alongside. They'll be able to help you with understanding not only the importance of focusing and creating that meaningful content that you're trying to develop, whether that's physical, mental, or social or cultural, it also gives you an accountability partner. Oh yes, those wonderful people in your life that are going to hold you to the fire and ask you why it was never done. I know that for many people, the aspect of working with somebody that you do not know is the most scariest thing. What if they take my ideas? What if they don't really deliver on what they're promising? Even more importantly, what if they never show up? And I've had people that have been working with me for so long that they have been committed to continue to work on themselves. Sometimes they're more of a struggle over others, but they still get the job done once they realize that they have been working on themselves and being more intentional about the time that they're utilizing. Oh yeah, time. I'm sure you probably were thinking about that too, as I got so much to do and so little time to do it in. What makes you think that I'm going to be able to make any progress? Because that's why I'm not making progress in the first place. What do I do about that? I think that goes alongside of your environment and having the right tools and managing your expectations. When you love doing something that you really want to do, you will make the time for it. You will find that time will never be enough to be able to do all the things that you want to accomplish. But when you figure out that time is on your side and that time is yet a fleeting concept, but also the ability in which we manage our productivity can make such a big difference, then you start to realize that time is not just the thing that might stand in the way. It can become your best friend. What I mean by that is when you love something so much, just like I love doing this podcast and I love working on my business, Your Speaking Voice LLC, I start to enjoy not just what I do on a daily basis, but I also start to enjoy working with others. It allows me to enjoy what I have forgotten about life and what its magical powers can do to help me in my physical, my mental, all the other things that are important in my overall development. I've been on many podcasts, even on other shows for that matter, that have expressed this concept. Happiness, being able to see your authentic self, which ironically enough, other people do the same concept. Or is it not so ironic? But even people that dig deep into the psychology of what's really involved. And I think of Michelle Wolf, which I hope Michelle's listening to this. I've recently been on her show talking about the struggles as a male, relating to even figuring out what are some of the things that hold me back from reaching my true potential and why I want to work with others that want to seek the same. Our stories are so intertwined. They create some of the best values if we're just willing to stop and listen to what other people's experiences are. In other words, if you really are struggling, 9 chances out of 10, someone else has been struggling with it too. I guarantee you, you can find a blog, you can find a podcast, you can find somebody close to you that will be able to work with you to figure out what are some of the struggles that stand in your way of not making progress. Now, I joked about earlier, starting out with this episode, about the importance of goals, and really, maybe they shouldn't have mattered today. But let me revisit that subject now, because one of the things that you might have realized is that if you don't have the right plan, none of this will come to fruition. And that's what this is really all about. If you have the right plan in place, if you have the right tools, you have the right environment, you have the right mindset, you have the right accountability, you are going to make progress. Things happen for a reason, and such is life. But when you make life an excuse over and over again, are you really going to continue asking yourself, why am I not making any progress? The title of this show. I think that you would understand that maybe, just maybe, you need to stop giving yourself excuses and start giving yourself deadlines. The big endeavors that we have in our life don't have to be this big mystery. We can create a process for us to create, engage, and deliver what you set up for yourself. It's just a matter of setting up those expectations for yourself and holding yourself accountable to it. Whether you need somebody else's help or not is totally your choice. But the choices that we make in our lives really dictate the success that we're able to create. If you're too broad, you're never going to get to where you need to be. If they're not time-bound, you're never going to meet those expectations of where you're trying to get to. If you're not realistic about it, or maybe even real about it for that matter, you're never, ever, ever, ever going to leave fictional world and be stuck in a whole platitude of different things that you always wanted to accomplish. If you're not measuring, you're not succeeding either. But even if you're relatable, having the relationships with someone to be able to hold you to that accountability factor that you need to have can make such a difference. There doesn't have to be this big mystery sauce that you have to consume in order to figure out that goal setting and goal achieving can be attributed to not only helping yourself grow, but to prosper as well. Don't let yourself be held back from your ambitions, your desires, your dreams, because you think that there's some artificial wall that stands in your way. The wall that stands in your way might be something that you created a long time ago, and it's time now to revisit whether that wall should have ever been erected in the first place. And if you can't easily tear that wall down, get someone to help you. Any sort of coach, any sort of facilitator, anybody that works in the realm of trying to overcome those fears, or somebody that you should become friends with, and very soon. Even if you can't do that right now, look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself what is holding you back from being the most beautiful person in the world to be able to achieve what is necessary for you to be successful. If you can break down those things into not only the opportunities of a lifetime and make them small, manageable, bite-sized pieces, those BHAG goals, or those goals that have looked very big as an elephant, start to break down a little bit further. One of the last things I'll talk about is the fact that behind me, in my very office in which I meet with my clients, is a picture of an elephant. The picture of the elephant has many words that make up the drawing, the illustration of what the elephant looks like, which the elephant is one of the wisest, one of the strongest mammals that ever walked the earth. And yet, at the same time, mammals like elephants are often looked at as big. They cannot be taken down. They are very noble creatures. I think that each and every one of you are elephants. And that every time that you walk across this earth, you're nurturing and helping others. That's why I have that elephant behind me. It's always looking over my shoulder and looking at you. Every time that you're able to accomplish some of the best things that you could ever accomplish in your life. All it takes is just changing that mindset, having the determination, and having the confidence to keep moving forward. And oh yeah, creating that environment to be able to do the same. Because let's face it, why you're not making progress? It's simple. You're letting your own self get in your own way. And you're letting other people tell you the same. Stop making excuses. Start leaning into what you know is the truth. And when you lean into the truth, nothing is impossible to achieve. Thanks for listening to episode number 117 of Speaking from the Heart. And I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.